Hey everybody, it's Sean. I am really pleased to talk to you about Chad Harbach's The Art of Fielding. I just finished this book over my spring break and it was a beautiful read. So I decided to pull out the best passages and the best provocations or ideas from the art of fielding. Last time I did a video like this was on Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And there's some clear overlaps or interesting parallels between the art of motorcycle maintenance and the art of fielding. Both of these activities that we do that give us a kind of lens to look at a human life and the existential questions of a human life, namely our freedom to choose, our inevitable death, and our capacity to make meaning with our actions, human choice and what it means to be a human. It felt like a really beautiful exploration of baseball, but really human nature. So here we go. Here's the top 10, 9 or 10, I think we'll do 10, of the best provocations and passages from Chad Harbach's The Art of Fielding, and I'm not going to give too much away. All right, the first one is a passage in praise of a sidelong love. Here we go. Sometimes a cloudless swatch of sky would blow past the moon, and Pella could see the outlines of Mike's face in slightly sharper relief. It was strange the way he loved her, a sidelong and almost casual love, as if loving her were simply a matter of course, too natural to mention. Like their first meetings on the step of the gym, when he'd hardly so much as glanced at her. With David and every guy before David, what passed for love had always been eye to eye, nose to nose. She felt watched, observed, like the prize inhabitant at a zoo, and she wound up pacing, preening, watching back to fit the part. Whereas Mike was always beside her. He would stand at the kitchen window and look out at the quad, at the Melville statue and beyond that beach and the rolling lake, and realize that Mike, for however long, had been standing beside her, staring at the same thing. So beautifully perceptive about how we look at someone affects the way they behave, and how the way people look at us affect the way we behave as well. And a beautiful vision of a loving relationship of people being side by side, shoulder to shoulder, looking the same direction rather than looking at each other. Gorgeous. Number 2, this is maybe my favorite. It is how to field a ground ball. To field a ground ball must be considered a generous act and an act of comprehension. One moves not against the ball, but with it. Bad fielders stab at the ball like an enemy. This is antagonism. The true fielder lets the path of the ball become his own path, thereby comprehending the ball and dissipating the self, which is the source of all suffering and poor defense. It's like Zen and the Art of Archery from Herigel. This is like beautiful, beautiful stuff. And then number 3 is this. There are 3 stages: thoughtless being, thought, and return to thoughtless being. Do not confuse the first and third stages. Thoughtless being is attained by everyone. The return to thoughtless being by a very few. This presents kind of the arc of mastery and the beautiful question about what it is to get really good at fielding ground balls, or whatever it is that you're fielding in your life. Is that it begins with thoughtlessness. There's complete beginner's mind. And the better you get, the more involved you get, the more thought can assemble, particularly when there's scouts watching and the world and all of that, right? And then to return to that original state of innocence, that's the journey. That's really the action in this book, is to see how and if and what that looks like. All right, so you got Henry Scrimshander, the wanting to be the greatest shortstop that ever lived, mimicking this Taoist master of a shortstop. And then you have Mike Schwartz, who's this big jock kind of character in the Division III school baseball that they're playing for. The Westish Harpooners is the name of the team. Okay. This is also really beautiful in coaching. So there's some interesting things about what it means to coach well. And that's why I chose this passage. It's also beautifully written, like a lot of this book. That's why he didn't want to go into coaching, though everyone at Westish, especially the coaches, expected him to. He already knew he could coach. All you had to do was look at each of your players and ask yourself, what story does this guy wish someone would tell him about himself? And then you told the guy that story. You told it with a hint of doom. You included his flaws. You emphasized the obstacles that could prevent him from succeeding. That was what made the story epic. The player, the hero, had to suffer mightily en route to his final triumph. Schwartz knew that people love to suffer, as long as the suffering made sense. Everybody suffered. The key was to choose the form of your suffering. Most people couldn't do this alone. They needed a coach. A good coach made you suffer in a way that suited you. A bad coach made everyone suffer the same way, and so was more like a torturer. I mean, this is so cool because it touches on the future frontiers of narrative collaborative coaching development and third generation coaching. That what good coaches do is help you tell a better story of your life. And in some ways, in doing that, are a participant in seeing and naming the story in a way that is uniquely, helps you make sense of it, that is uniquely your own, right? A good coach made you suffer in a way that suited you. A bad coach made everyone suffer in the same way. It was more like a torture. This is like incredibly interesting in how to motivate people to perform well and what coaching excellence looks like to get those stories that are relevant, that inspire us to be the best that we can be. So the last one is about the freedom to choose the kind of suffering you have. Suffering is not optional. We will suffer. The choice of what kind of suffering and to what end and what sense we make of that suffering, that's what we have the choice. Which segues right into domestic life. No, that's a terrible joke. No, this next passage is about domestic life. It's also about, as I read it, Nietzsche's myth of the eternal return, about this way of living in a way that we would be happy with the moments that we're in repeating themselves infinitely. As a kind of litmus test of the quality of our life is this question: if this moment were to return eternally, would you be stoked about that or not? And moving more towards the stoked with this moment, eternally recurring. Anyway, this is about the bliss of domesticity and domestic life. I love this. Owen always picked the same 2 mugs, and even presumably went so far as to rinse them in the sink when they were dirty. Such consistency suggested, or seemed to suggest, that Owen found their afternoons worth repeating, even down to the smallest detail. This was the dreamy, paradisical side of domestic ritual, when all the days were possessed of the same minutia, precisely because you wanted them to be. Whew. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, that last passage was about consistency. Consistency in the minutia of daily ritual, constructed in such a way that you would want to repeat that over and over again. And that's another motif or theme around excellence in sport, is the ability to repeat the same actions over and over again and have them mean something in a particular way. And I pulled this one out. This next one is on the paradox of high performance. So this is, and that consistency. Here we go. Henry, ... would be chiseled and resolute, his eyes hardened, his curls shaved down to a military half-inch. The making of a ball player, the production of brute efficiency out of natural genius. For Schwartz, this formed the paradox at the heart of baseball, or football, or any other sport. You loved it because you considered it an art, an apparently pointless affair, undertaken by people with a special aptitude, which sidestepped attempts to paraphrase its value, yet somehow seem to communicate something true or even crucial about the human condition. Capitalizes the human condition. The human condition being basically that we're alive and have access to beauty, can even erratically create it, but will someday be dead and will not. Baseball was an art, but to excel at it, you had to become a machine. It didn't matter how beautifully you performed sometimes, what you did on your best day, how many spectacular plays you made. You weren't a painter or a writer. You didn't work in private and discard your mistakes, and it wasn't just your masterpieces that counted. What mattered for any machine was repeatability. Moments of inspiration were nothing compared to the elimination of error. The scouts cared little for Henry's superhuman grace. Insofar as they cared for that, they were suckered in aesthetes and shitty scouts. Can you perform on demand like a car or a furnace or like a gun? Can you make the throw 100 times out of 100? If it can't be 100, it had better be 99. Woo! Paradox of turning the natural genius, the love of the art, into the machined consistency born out of, or machined replicability born out of consistency in practice. As number 7, there's another beautiful passage, a little bit different of a frame, not on the baseball field, but between Chef Sporadicus, who's the head chef in the mess hall, in the food hall of the campus. Can't remember what that's called. Dining hall. He's the head of the dining hall. And the president's daughter, Pella Affenlight, is working at the dining hall. And there's a relationship that forms between the head cook and Pella Affenlight working, president's daughter working at dishes in the kitchen. And Pella Affenlight very much cares about washing dishes. She finds some meaning in it, in her reconstruction of herself. And she cares about doing it in much the same way that Henry cares about playing the shortstop. They're both kind of natural extensions of where they are. In any case, Chef Sporadicus waved his stubby fingers. He set down his clipboard and looked at her with a solemn expression. "You're a fine employee," he said, his voice thick with feeling. "Thank you," Pella said. He waved his fingers again as if to brush away the casualness of his response. "Listen to me. You care about the kitchen. You dry the spots from the glasses. You think nobody notices?" He tapped himself on the temple near the eye. "But I notice. A fine employee." Pella felt her own eyes getting moist. Humans are ridiculous creatures, she thought. Or maybe it's just me. A purportedly intelligent person, purportedly aware of the ways in which women and wage laborers have been oppressed by millennia. And I get choked up because someone tells me I'm good at washing dishes. "Thank you," she said again, this time with earnest emotion that easily matched Chef Sporadicus's own. He dropped an elbow onto the table, squished his supple chin against his stubby-fingered hand, eyed her with a melancholy squint. "The God is in the detail, as they say. You understand this. I think you would make a really good chef." "Really?" Chef Sporadicus shrugged. "Maybe," he said, "if that's what you wanted." He ends up having a dream of chef. I've heard the devil is in the detail. I've always thought about that in terms of like pay attention to the small print on a legal contract. I've never heard the God is in the detail, which is in our capacity to pay attention to the very narrow and particular things that other people cannot, which kind of raise the act of dishwashing or fielding to being like a fine employee. Beautiful. Number 8, favorite passage in this book is, this is a little picture of the huddle, Mike Schwartz, the team captain, taking the lead. And the title of this one is To Play as Human. And here we go. Coach Cox wasn't much for pre-game speeches. Here's the lineup, men. Starblind, Phlox, Scrimmer, Schwartz, O'Shea, Boddington, Quisp, Galandi, Kim. No reason we can't handle these guys. Schwartzy, you got anything to add? Schwartz reached down and plucked an index card out of his shin guard knee flap. Schiller, he said, man only plays when in the full meaning of the word, he is a man. And he is only completely a man when he plays. Schwartz paused and passed his eyes around the huddle slowly, allowing them to settle on each of his teammates' faces, intense but benevolent. Whatever remained of the harpooner's nervousness burned away like gas when the pilot lights lit. We've done the work. We've ran and lifted and puked our guts out. We built this program out of nothing. We made ourselves proud to put on this uniform. We don't have a single goddamn thing left to prove to anyone. We're proven. Today, we play. He extended a hand into the center of the huddle. He looked at Henry and smiled. Play on 3. 1, 2, 3. Play! All right, number 9 lesson from the book is that turns out literature can make you an asshole. I'm not going to give you the full context of this because it would give too much away of the narrative, but this is the president of the university, Affenlight, coming up to an amazing hypothesis in his head while sitting next to Aparicio, the greatest shortstop, arguably, that's ever lived in this universe. Okay. Affenlight found this hypothesis exciting, if dubiously constructed. Then he glanced at Aparicio, hands folded mournfully in his lap, and his excitement curdled to embarrassment. Literature could turn you into an asshole. He'd learned that teaching grad school seminars. It could teach you to treat real people the way you did characters, as instruments of your own intellectual pleasure, cadavers on which to practice your critical faculties. Whew. That's like the essence of the I-thou relationship, an I-it relationship from Martin Buber. When even if we begin to see people as specimens for our own intellectual or other like investigation, we cease to see them for themselves. So I think prejudice works this way. And it's interesting that literature, being so educated as the president of a university, could turn you into an asshole in that way, but it can. Number 10, maybe my favorite passage in the book. This book's over 500 pages long, 515 pages or so, and I hope you've enjoyed these, my favorite passages from Chad Harbach's The Art of Fielding. This book, I loved it. It means a lot to me. I'm glad that you're hanging out and listening to this. Thank you. A soul isn't something a person is born with. It's something that must be built by effort and error, study and love. And you did that with more dedication than most. That work of building a soul, not for your own benefit, but for the benefit of those who knew you. Woo! In the exploration of what makes a valuable life, it is this dedication to soul making and building through effort and error of the training and the mistakes, the study and the love of the art of fielding, whatever that is for you. Chad Harbach's The Art of Fielding, an emotional book for me. I hope you enjoyed this and the other passages. If you like more, if you want more of this kind of material, let me know. And happy practice. Go Rams.